The narrator recounts a dramatic experience where his apartment caught fire just before his engagement. His best friend James saved him from the blaze, but tensions rose as James's calls to the narrator's fiancée Chloe were dismissed. James became enraged, clashing with Chloe, and then with his own girlfriend Sophia, who urged him to stop causing a scene. After surviving a critical night in the hospital, the narrator decided to call off his engagement. James immediately followed suit, breaking up with Sophia. Despite injuries and difficult recovery, James remained the narrator's steadfast companion, highlighting their strong bond. George, still hospitalized in the ICU, misses Chloe's engagement party, leading to a tense phone call where Chloe accuses him of deliberately skipping the event. James angrily intervenes, defending George and criticizing Chloe's overreaction. Shortly after, James receives a call from his ex, Sophia, and their heated exchange culminates in a final breakup, with James blocking her number. Despite the drama, James advises George to rest and avoid stress. The narrator reflects on ignoring Chloe's calls and messages after not showing up, causing Chloe to lose face and send an ultimatum. The engagement party was organized by the Davis family. The narrator explains their complicated family background and how they asked their parents to cancel plans after an injury. Chloe refused to believe the narrator and even arranged a stand-in for the engagement party, revealing her lack of shame. While having bandages changed, the narrator overhears colleagues discussing Chloe's engagement and sees a photo of Chloe and Dylan together, looking happy and well-matched. This moment is painful for the narrator, both physically and emotionally, as the nurse gently continues the bandage change. The narrator endures intense pain during the bandage change, but finds it less painful than the emotional hurt caused by Chloe. James offers comfort and advises ignoring Chloe and her partner. Meanwhile, the narrator mentions a call from Sophia, who made seafood chowder for them. The narrator discusses a breakup involving a girl who is allergic to seafood, but forgets this fact often. James shows a live TikTok video of a popular creator interviewing people with unusual match eyeballs. Surprisingly, James's ex-girlfriend Sophia appears on the stream, eating a sour plum, filled match eyeball and wishing the next person, Dylan, would get a rose-flavored one. James reacts emotionally, commenting about Sophia's forgetfulness of his allergy. Sophia quickly gains viral attention on social media, with many envying Dylan, who later shares a happy tweet about receiving the rose-flavored match eyeball. The narrator reflects on the complicated relationships involving Sophia, James, Dylan, and K.H. Lowe, noting their romantic entanglements. After using Dylan as a stand-in for an engagement, the narrator decides to leave and return K.H. Lowe's expensive gifts. 48 hours later, the narrator is moved to a regular ward, and the attending physician explains the severity of the injuries, emphasizing the need for emotional stability and recovery. While the doctor finishes rounds, the narrator receives a surprising call from K.H. Lowe, who insists on reconciliation after praising Dylan's intervention at an engagement party. The narrator responds by highlighting their serious injuries and hospitalization, which K.H. Lowe initially doubts. After confirming hospital details and inviting K.H. Lowe to visit, it becomes evident that K.H. Lowe, head of the surgical department, must be aware of the narrator's condition, but has been preoccupied with her engagement party. Chloe arrives with Dylan, who poses as Dr. Davis's fiancé, sparking excitement and jealousy among others. Although the couple outside believes they are genuinely engaged, the narrator reveals that the fiancé is a last-minute replacement and that the real relationship with Chloe has ended. Despite the pretense, Dylan enjoys the attention and expresses gratitude for the care given to Chloe. Dylan confidently shows off his role as Chloe's fiancé, while Chloe is surprised and uneasy to find the narrator in a private room. A tense exchange follows, with Chloe accusing the narrator of wasting hospital resources and questioning their behavior. The narrator responds sarcastically and refuses to apologize, escalating the confrontation. Dylan intervenes to calm Chloe, but she accuses the narrator of scheming, which the narrator dismisses, insisting that the breakup is final and demanding to be left alone. A heated confrontation unfolds in the hospital room where George, severely injured from a fire, slaps K.H. Lowe after she attempts to hit him. Dylan defends K.H. Lowe, but the doctor arrives and notices George's deteriorating condition linked to emotional stress. The doctor warns George to stay calm, revealing the severity of his injuries and the complications affecting his heart. Tensions rise as accusations and disbelief fill the room. George sarcastically challenges K.H. Lowe's intrusion and the doctor's expectations for him to remain calm. Dylan questions how the doctor knew about the fire at George's apartment, revealing his discomfort. The doctor advises George to avoid getting worked up, while George jokingly asks if hitting someone is an acceptable way to vent stress, causing the doctor to awkwardly agree and leave. The strained dynamics between George, K.H. Lowe, and Dylan become more apparent. With the doctor gone, Dylan attempts to explain himself to George, expressing regret over the situation. K.H. Lowe surprisingly apologizes for neglecting George and misunderstanding him, but George coldly rejects the apology and declares the end of their relationship. Despite K.H. Lowe's insistence on making amends, George warns them to leave or face public exposure of their conflicts, escalating the tension further. George accuses K.H. Lowe and Dylan of betrayal and emotional abandonment, calling out Dylan's inappropriate closeness to K.H. Lowe despite knowing their past relationship. Dylan is visibly hurt by the accusations. K.H. Lowe begins to admit fault and expresses a desire to make things right, but George remains resolute in ending things and demands they leave immediately. Dylan grudgingly agrees to leave with K.H. Lowe. K.H. Lowe refuses to leave, explaining that the engagement date was set months ago and that she covered for George's absence by blaming a business trip. George questions why she didn't postpone the engagement given their situation and grows increasingly hostile, threatening to call security. Before anyone can act, James arrives, furious at K.H. Lowe and Dylan for showing up and disrupting George's recovery, escalating the confrontation. James angrily confronts Dylan and K.H. Lowe, accusing them of neglecting George during his time of need and mocking their relationship. He forcibly removes Dylan from the room while publicly denouncing K.H. Lowe's actions and loyalty. K.H. Lowe, surprisingly calm, promises to return another day but is told not to bother. James's outburst draws attention from hospital staff and onlookers, altering their perceptions of the trio and underscoring the deep fractures in their relationships. K.H. Lowe refuses to leave George's side despite Dylan's disbelief and James's mocking insults, asserting her responsibility for George. James publicly humiliates K.H. Lowe at the hospital, threatening to file complaints if she returns. This damages K.H. Lowe's reputation, forcing her to leave with Dylan while hospital staff look on uneasily. After his public outburst, James expresses regret for not physically confronting K.H. Lowe himself, showing satisfaction in standing up to Dylan. The narrator appreciates James's support, feeling reassured by his presence. Meanwhile, K.H. Lowe's shameless behavior in continuing to harass the narrator despite recent events is noted with surprise. A video of James's tirade is posted online, sparking internet users to investigate and reveal Sophia's connection to Dylan, exposing a complicated and scandalous relationship. Sophia faces harsh public backlash for her involvement with two men and her inability to delay her engagement, which many see as selfish and inappropriate. Sophia's attempt to remove the viral video fails, and she tries to reconcile with James, who rejects her and retaliates by exposing their past arguments online. The internet further condemns Sophia as she desperately seeks forgiveness, even involving James's boss, escalating tensions. James publicly confronts Sophia in a live stream, accusing her of selfishness and hypocrisy for abandoning Dylan when his reputation suffers. Sophia denies harassment, but James warns her of exposing her secrets. The Miller family intervenes, instructing Sophia to leave the country to manage the fallout from the scandal. Sophia was determined to win James back and refused to give up despite his resistance, which frustrated him enough to leave town temporarily. Meanwhile, the narrator grew annoyed as Chloe used her hospital role to forcibly take over their care, persistently reviewing their medical charts despite the narrator's protests. The narrator reflects on past neglect and promises to make amends, asserting their irreplaceable role in Chloe's life despite her engagement to Dylan. Chloe's actions reveal her inner turmoil, and the narrator confronts her about her inability to let go of both relationships, questioning the authenticity of her love. The narrator sarcastically challenges Chloe, who appears defeated and is about to be discharged. They propose an amicable separation, warning Chloe to let go to avoid future regret. The narrator realizes their worth and refuses to compete for Chloe's attention any longer. The narrator embraces self-respect and independence, deciding not to devalue themselves for Chloe. They accept that Chloe will choose her own path, while they will move on to find someone who truly values them. Despite Chloe's misunderstanding, the narrator remains determined to be true to themselves. The narrator shares how they exposed K.H. Lowe's engagement party with Dylan by posting photos and tagging her on social media, leading to a formal complaint against K.H. Lowe at the hospital. Despite chances to clarify the situation, K.H. Lowe remained silent, allowing rumors to spread and gain sympathy for Dylan. The narrator decided to reveal the truth to show who was really right. The narrator posted a viral compilation highlighting K.H. Lowe ditching them for Dylan, which caused public backlash against K.H. Lowe as a homewrecker and manipulative figure. The scandal spread quickly at the hospital, resulting in K.H. Lowe's suspension. Meanwhile, the narrator's partner James supported them, distancing himself from his own family due to Sophia's betrayal. This confrontation felt empowering and justified. The narrator's live stream exposing K.H. Lowe gained 300,000 followers and attracted sponsorship offers, prompting consideration of a fresh start through social media monetization. They resolved to move on from the Miller family but remain ready to confront them if necessary. However, the situation with K.H. Lowe remained complicated as she was stubborn and unwilling to let go. Despite the narrator wanting to move on, K.H. Lowe persistently showed up at their new apartment, waiting outside all day and night for a week. Her refusal to leave and the narrator's fading feelings underscore the complex and unresolved nature of their relationship. George discovers Chloe smoking in her car, a surprising behavior for a surgeon who valued her senses. He takes a photo and sends it to Dylan, who reacts with anger and threatens George, fearing more damaging information might surface. Dylan arrives to confront Chloe, and George watches their tense interaction from his window before Chloe and Dylan leave together. Following a suspension, Chloe's reputation at the hospital deteriorates due to complaints about her irresponsibility, leading to her reassignment to a logistics administrative role. Her fall from a respected department head to an insignificant figure causes her to turn to heavy drinking, effectively ending her surgical career. George remains detached as Chloe reaches out to him, expressing pain and a desire not to be found. Chloe, a surgeon, deliberately inflicted severe facial injuries on Dylan, causing permanent disfigurement and scarring due to his skin type. Despite her arrest for assault, she was released because of her compromised mental state following a psychotic break. The Davis family, heavily invested in Chloe, blamed Dylan and overlooked her deteriorating condition. After Dylan's hospital discharge, Chloe escalated the violence by setting his house on fire, severely burning him. Dylan apparently chose to die alongside her in the flames. After the previous situation resolved, James and the narrator proceeded to their next destination, anticipating a much clearer and promising view ahead. After her call to George, he and James prepare to leave the city, having decided to travel and settle elsewhere since George no longer has ties to Chloe or the city. At the airport, they encounter Sophia, who is being sent abroad against her will by her family. Sophia struggled to reach James, but was restrained by bodyguards while her father violently reprimanded her, warning her to behave abroad or risk never returning. Meanwhile, James observed the situation with a blank expression and revealed that the Millers had paid Dylan $5 million to sever ties with Sophia. Despite accepting the money and promising to stay away, Dylan secretly resumed contact with her, prompting the Millers to send Sophia away and reclaim the money. Just before boarding the plane, George received a remorseful text from Chloe, who confessed to breaking his heart and vowed to make amends through her actions. George ignored the message and turned off his phone. Later, on the way to their hotel, James showed George a shocking news headline. K.H. Lowe had vandalized Dylan's house by smashing windows and aggressively confronting him. After leaving the city behind, George and James settled in a small coastal town, far away from the chaos of their past. The air was calm, and the wide beaches filled them with a sense of peace. For the first time in years, George felt safe, far from heartbreaks and romantic rivalries. James, who had always stood by his side, felt the same relief. They spent their days strolling along the boardwalk, sipping coffee at local cafes and exploring small shops. There were no pressures, no reminders of painful past names or events. One evening, as they watched the sunset together, George noticed a soft glow at the harbor where a group of local musicians was playing gentle music. James took George's hand and smiled, saying, "This is a fresh start, isn't it?" George smiled back, feeling a warmth he hadn't felt in a long time, realizing that the best thing that had happened to him wasn't just surviving the fire or leaving the city. It was having James always by his side. As the days went by, new friendships blossomed, and opportunities arose for both of them. George enrolled in a photography course where he met a kind and cheerful woman named Lily, who shared his passion for cameras and art. Over time, their friendship deepened into a warm, romantic relationship, filled with laughter, support, and shared adventures. James, meanwhile, met a gentle and caring man named Sam, who loved James's devotion to others and his enthusiasm for life. Their bond grew quickly, built on trust, understanding, and humor. James realized that he had finally found someone who matched his energy and cared for him as deeply as he did for George. Together, George and James felt a sense of completeness they had never known before. They celebrated their new lives, their new loves, and the peace that came from leaving the past behind. For the first time, the trauma and drama felt like a distant memory, replaced by happiness, companionship, and the certainty that love, real, lasting love,